how do you talk to kids about how to interact with classmates who may be homeless?
So I always love teaching with a game. That's the kind of mom that I am. It's the kind of preschool teacher I was. So when I have the opportunity to talk to students, and it's interesting how that's had to kind of change over the years, because I think as I've been in this ministry longer, this is my 18th year at the city mission. I kind of spoke as, let's talk about homelessness as if no one in this room is homeless. And I've really had to change my own mindset. The Lord continues to humble me and teach me. And so being cognizant now, knowing that it's not just Cleveland metropolitan schools either, that every suburban school near us, all of the different school districts, we've had children from those areas, even some of the most elite school districts. We've had students that come to us and are living at Laura's home and still going to school. So I play a game and I show, this will say how old I am, I guess. It's like clip art, different kinds of houses. So it's like cartoony and fun. And sometimes I'll even throw in like SpongeBob's house or whatever, but we're looking at like a castle. And I talk about, okay, we yell out, of course, because I love chaos. I love learning in chaos. So we yell out what kind of house it is, who lives in this house, and where we might find this kind of house. So we go from a castle to like a mud hut to an adobe to a teepee. And then we get into like kind of what you'd see like townhomes and apartments. And then we get to a duplex, and then it finalizes with a single family home. But by that point, the kids are tired. They think I'm ridiculous because we've answered all of these questions. And I make them think. They just say, well, it's a house. And I say, what kind of a house? And without fail, I think one time I had some really smart students who would just not say it, but I hear the same answers. That's a normal, regular house, right? Because that's what they're accustomed to. And so I say, oh, you guys all failed, right? And so, the connotation of normal or regular, I say, well, a mud hut is a normal, regular home in Africa, right? A log cabin is a normal, regular home if you live like in a wooded area or in the mountains. And we kind of go back through and talk about all of those things. And again, normalizing that we're all normal, right? And so when I get to sprinkle in Jesus, which is not most of the time when I'm in these places, we talk about the image of God and that as well. But we say, I immediately want to rip off those labels of what is normal, because we're all normal. And then I kind of go through a diagram of what Laura's home kind of looks like and talk about it. But so we start that way. So it's fun. It's learning. We're learning together. We've all failed, right? We all got to that wrong conclusion and start rebuilding from there. I wish it was that easy with adults, right?
Yeah.
But so then we talk about what does it mean to be homeless, and how can someone become homeless? And those are big questions for little minds, right? And so I listen to them. I like children to come up with their own ideas, and I feed on that, right? No matter how crazy it can be, we can get them back to, okay, whatever ground level is for learning there. So that's how I start.
Your story of like, what kind of house is this, reminds me of when we had our son. My sister brought her kids to come visit us. And we live in Chicago. Okay. We live in the city of Chicago, not downtown. We don't live in a high rise. We live in a 2-story walk up.
Inner city.
Yeah. And they live in Louisville, Kentucky. And, in Louisville, Kentucky, you can get like a 5-bedroom house for $250,000. Okay. You can't get even like anything here for that. So, they came to visit us. This was the first time they had ever come to our apartment, because usually we were at, my parents' house as like a mutual location. So they're coming into our house, and they're coming up the back stairwell, which is like where you put like all your junk. And like,
it's raggedy.
Yeah.
Like any Chicago apartment, like back door walk up is raggedy.
Normally it's outside. Ours happened to be enclosed, but it's still raggedy. So our niece, she was probably 7 or 6 at the time. She's walking up and she goes, "Are you guys going to clean this place up?" And I was like, no, this is like basically outside. I know it's like enclosed, but this is like basically outside. And first of all, this is not our house. We're renting it. And so we can't change anything. And this is just what it's like. This is what it's like to live in a city apartment. And then she gets inside and she's like, oh, you did clean up in here. And I was like, yeah, like it's not like moldy wood like you just saw outside, but just like a totally different experience of, oh, people live differently than me. And I think just watching her experience that for the first time was even eye-opening for me to be like, oh yeah, like you don't know what it's like. This is our norm, but this is not your norm. And for kids to think about someone that lives totally opposite of them is like a big revelation for them.
Right. And so even when we're going through that exercise, I'll say, does anyone live in a duplex? And inevitably there is someone, or I've gone on vacation on a houseboat and I'm like, oh, wasn't that fun? And isn't that different? And, then we talk about why you can't have a houseboat in Cleveland year round because it's too cold. But, like we go off on those so that we have some shared experience and that they can be, that they can kind of lead those discussions like, oh, I've been in a log cabin, or, some are not great descriptions, but we're able to talk about them. And again, normalizing that to say, just because you haven't and that's not your experience doesn't mean that it's worse than this normal, regular single family home, right?